Hi, good morning friends. My name is Pramod. Today my topic is classification of rapid prototyping. Introduction. There are many ways in which one can classify the rapid prototyping systems. One of the better way is classify the based upon the materials. There are liquid based materials, liquid based, solid based and powder based. If you go for the liquid based materials, liquid based rapid systems have initial form of its materials in the liquid state, though the process commercially known as curing, that is liquid is converted into the solid. The following are the examples of the liquid based, that is stereolithographic process, solid creation systems, solid ground curing and solid object ultraviolet laser printer and light sculpturing and rapid freezing, single laser beam and two laser beam and microfabrication system. Most of the most liquid based rapid prototyping system built the part in a vat of photocurable liquid resins that cures or solidifies under the effect of ultraviolet radiations. The laser cures the resin near at the surface and form a harder layer. When the layer of the part is formed, and it will move to the next layer. So this is the basic principle for the liquid based systems. That in this single mainly if you go for the single laser beam method is mostly used in all the process except some of the single ground curing, light sculpturing and rapid freezing. Cubical that is single ground and light sculpturing use mask lamp methods, while two laser beam still it is not to be commercialized. In this first example for the liquid base is stereolithographic process. In this process, the stereolithographic process creates three-dimensional plastic objects directly from the CAD data. The process begins with vat filled with a photocurable liquid resins. The operator first loads the CAD data model into the system and the required support files also at the same time. The computer controls this computer controls the optical scanning system and direct the laser and laser beam so that it can solidify the two-dimensional XY direction cross section corresponding to the slicing of the surface of photocurable liquid resins to a depth of given The laser then drawn to the next layer. This process continues build the part from the bottom up until this system completes the part. This is the basic principle for the stereolithographic process. The stereolithographic process for this supports need for the manufacturing of any undercut. We want to use support structures built with a similar part of honeycomb or columns or different structures. We want to use support structure. Materials for this is photopolymers, acrylite, epoxies, and colorable resins and filled resins. And second example for the liquid based materials is solid ground curing. In solid ground curing process, in this method, a thin layer of photopolymer resin is spread on the work surface. The photo mask from the mask is placed closely approximately above the workpiece and aligned with the ultraviolet lamp. The part of the liquid layer which is exposed to the ultraviolet light through the photo mask is harder, so it will not allow the UV radiations. The unsolidified resin is then collected from the workpiece. This is done by the vacuumization. The following melt wax is spread on the cavities to create collected liquid resin. This layer is once one layer is formed, after that we can put a wax layer on above it, and the layer is milled to its exact thickness to produce the flat surface readily to receive. Once this milling is over, then we want to put one more liquid resin and we put on that with a mask, so we can pass the ultraviolet radiations which is solidified to make a harder materials. This is the process for the solid ground curing process. In the solid ground curing process, the process itself supporting structures that does not require any additional extra supports. If you go for that wax, like uncured liquid resins will act as a support structure. No need of any giving of any extra support for this solid ground. The structural support for this providing use of wax act as a support structure from some of the materials. And materials like photopolymers on poly carbonate, elastomers and bags. Solid. If you the second process is solid base method. Except powders, solid base rapid systems are meant taken composed of all its forms of materials in the solid state. Solid form can including the shapes in the form of wires, rollers, laminates, and pellets. The following are the examples of solid base like laminated object manufacturing, fused deposition modeling, paper laminated technology, multi-jet modeling systems, and slicing solid manufacturing. In rapid systems, laminated object manufacturing and paper laminate technology and multi-jet modeling belongs to cutting, gluing, and joining methods, while the melting and solidifying used for these methods are fused deposition method and solids caps model maker. The main difference between solid type and liquid type is if you go for the solid type of method, solid, if you go for solid, we can use papers or sheets which are readily available in the market, and we can place one by one above it and we'll cut the with the help of laser. And if you go for liquid based resins, where we want to go for liquid in the vat, in the vat, and we can focus the laser at that given point, and which will be make harder. This is the main difference between the solid type and liquid type. The example for this solid type is laminated object manufacturing. In this process, uh, uh, the parts are built layer by layer. In this process, the parts are built layer by layer, each layer of paper to form a sheet of papers, or sheet of forms the sheet metals on the corresponding. Each layer of built contains the cross section of one or more parts. For this process, just we want to put the layers one by one, what is the shape, and with the help of laser we can cut the dimension accordingly. So for this process, just we want to cut the material at that given dimensions. And the process itself is support structure. It does not require any additional extra support structures. The materials for this is paper, polymers, and plastics. And second example for the liquid base is solid deposition modeling. In this process, the fused deposition modeling process, a movable nozzle moves along the XY direction on the substrate material. The built material is a heated. This material is heated slightly above the melting point, so that the solidified with a very short time. After the extrusion into the surface, we want to extrude it and form the material exactly on the workpiece. The various important factors considered in this is nozzle, that is steady state nozzle, and material extrusion rate. These are the two important factors which we want to consider into the solid deposition rate. That is the direction. The supposed structures can be deposed with lesser density as compared to part density. Materials like metals is used in this process. And a third example, third process is powder based. In the powder is by a large in a solid state. However, it is internationally created outside the solid base rapid prototyping meant for the grain like forms. The following are the examples of powder base like selective laser sintering process, three-dimensional printing, laser engineering net shape, and electron beam melting, optical manufacturing, direct metal deposition, and direct shell production casting, multi-phase jet modeling. These are the process for this. The main the process is here to melt the metal, and melt the metal is the diffusion takes place within the metal to form the metal ions. Example for this method is selective laser beam method. In the selective laser beam methods, that is the first we want to go CAD. First we want to draw the CAD model under the fabrication selectively drawn by the user, and the layer of the powder is heated by generating of CO2 laser. Then intensity of the laser beam is modulated to melt the powder only in the areas defined by the part geometry. The surrounding powder remains as a loose powder compact serve as a support structure. When the cross section is completed drawn, additional layer of powder is deposited via rollers mechanism and rollers mechanisms and previous layer is scanned. This process next layer is for once the roller forms, another next layer will forms and the laser will be scanned and the metal will melt and form one more layer. So this is the basic principle for this selective laser sintering process. Stucco structures. The materials in the powder form which is not to be melted or fused, which has a support structures are built in support structures. The materials for this is polymer, metal with binders, metals and ceramics. And the second example for the powder base is laser engine net shaping. In this process, the first a deposited heat is supplied to melt the powders. Focus at high powder by using ND and arc lasers beam to be melted. In this process, that the angular section of that is just focused. The powder is also focused by using on the laser. Just we want to focus on powders on the our piece and laser is also focused at the same point, so it will be melt accurately at that point. So it will melt at that point and form a harder layer. So this is the basic this is the when the layer is completed, deposition heat move up and complete to the next layer. Suppose the materials are in this powder form and powders not melted is used as a support structures. Materials for this is polymers, metal with binders, metals and ceramics. This is the overall view of three process, that is liquid base. If you take liquid base, that is a stereolithographic process, that is a layer by layer, and phase change is photopolymerization, and materials are acrylate, epoxies and chlorable resins. And if you go for solid base curing, that is layer by layer and milling and photopolymerization and photopolymers, and fuse deposition rate, that is extrusion of metal plastics and solidify curing and thermoplastics. Similarly, if you go for the second process, that is a powder base, that is three-dimensional printing process, that is binder droplets deposit on the powder layer. No phase for this phase changing occur, like the materials are ceramics, polymers and metal powders with binders. And selective laser sintering process formed by layer of powders, a layer driven sinter are to melt polymers, metals with binders are the example for these materials. And the third process is solid base, that is examples of laminated object manufacturing, deposition of sheet metals. There is no phase change in this process. Materials of this process are papers and polymers. Thank you for giving for this. Thank you.